I'm joined now by political analyst Paul Williams from Griffith University. Paul, good morning to you. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure, Michael.
How do you see the result falling tomorrow?
Look, I'm still tipping a narrow LNP victory. Obviously, we're going to see a huge swing against the LNP, not just in Brisbane, but right across the state, especially in the north. So I'm tipping a swing of about 9% after preferences. That puts the LNP returned with a small majority, probably about 48 seats I'm tipping, and about 25 for the Labor Party. So would make them about 35 seats in the new parliament, much more evenly balanced, but LNP just over the line.
And that's a big turnaround for a government that has this thumping majority, annihilated the Labor Party in 2012. But I suppose if that is the case, says a lot about how the government has put so many people offside over the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the received wisdom that Campbell Newman's just made too many enemies, as it were, in his first year of school, if you like. He's antagonised a number of sectional pressure groups, and they've reached critical mass. There's a lot of people out there with an axe to grind, not just public servants, but teachers, nurses, and even the police union came out and condemned Campbell Newman during the campaign. So it seems like he's just got too many enemies and not enough friends to get him over the line.
Let's go to the Premier's own seat now. Of course, he's in that tussle with Kate Jones, the woman he unseated, the former member and minister in Ashgrove. How do you see that going tomorrow?
Look, again, the opinion polls tell us that if you're a betting person, you'd go for Kate Jones. It's about 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 chance that Kate Jones is going to take that seat. She's currently 8 points ahead after preferences of the Premier, which is exactly the inverse of where the Premier and Kate Jones were back in 2012. Very hard to make up that ground. The Premier's on 42% of the primary vote. Very hard to make up 9 or 10% of the preferences when there's only two other candidates. So Kate Jones looks like the next member for Ashgrove, and Premier Newman out of a job.
Okay, and if that happens, Campbell Newman loses. What do you see as his options? What do you expect him to do?
Look, I think Premier Newman's done a lot of things in his life. He was in the army. He's been an engineer. He's been in business. He's the kind of move-on guy. I think he'll take this on the chin. He's always said he did this for a job. He didn't need a job. He wanted to do a service for Queensland. Look, I think he'll move on and he'll find a very comfortable spot somewhere in business or something like that. Look, I think he'll be happy. He feels he served his time for Brisbane and Queensland, and I think he'll be happy to move on.
And the heir apparent would be Tim Nicholls, the Treasurer, our guest on the program a short time ago.
Yeah, look, Tim Nicholls is the conventional wisdom against been Tim Nicholls has the numbers in the current party room. He's in the dominant faction. He holds a safe Brisbane seat. He's got some runs on the board as a very competent minister. But the feedback I'm getting is that he's going to get a run for his money from Lawrence Springborg, the former National Party leader and founder of the LNP. Look, I think it'll be between those two. It'll be very close, Tim Nicholls or Lawrence Springborg.
How do you believe Anastasia Palaszczuk has run her campaign? Of course, she was unknown to a lot of voters still at the start of the campaign. How do you rate her performance?
I think Anastasia and the Labor Party's probably done the best they can with very limited resources. Obviously, they didn't get a lot of money because of the poor returns in 2012. People aren't donating to the Labor Party because it's not, no real chance of forming government. And she's a pretty inexperienced leader, but I think she's done the best that she's could. She's been a plotter. There's a bit of sympathy out there for us as a bit of the underdog. Obviously, a huge gaffe yesterday with the GST. But Labor's had a very solid plodding campaign. It hasn't set the world on fire, but not too bad.
A lot of talk about the impact of federal factors, including the decision to knight Prince Philip on this state campaign. How do you see that playing out tomorrow?
Look, federal factors are huge here in Queensland, as they were in Victoria last year. There's no doubt that a lot of the anti-LNP vote will also contain a lot of anti-Tony Abbott vote. Federal factors are huge. Obviously, things like the Medicare reforms, uni reforms, not to mention things like the Medicare backflip and the announcement of the knighthood. These are all hot topics in Queensland, and there's no doubt that a lot of voters will vote against Campbell Newman because they don't like Tony Abbott.
Okay, so Tony Abbott not doing Campbell Newman any real favours, particularly in the course of the last week.
No, not at all. And look, and clearly I think if and when the big swing comes against the Newman government, and again I'm tipping around about 9%, I think we'll see some state recriminations and some fingers pointed at Canberra.
Okay, and finally, if you're right and the Liberal National Party suffers this big swing but scrambles back into office, do you see a different tone, whoever the new Premier is, a different strategy, a different approach to the way government is run?
Look, I think you'll see a very different, almost unrecognisable government from the first government, because they realise that they can't carry on as they were, and especially if Lawrence Springborg becomes Premier, I think you'll see a much more heavily focused government on the regions. You'll probably see agriculture assume a bigger role, so it doesn't come at the expense of mining, and you'll probably see a much more conciliatory, consensual government.
Paul Williams from Griffith University, as always, thank you very much for your analysis.
My pleasure.